Hello again, my friends. We are continuing on our revisitation of Fantasy Games Unlimited Space Opera. This is currently Seldon's Compendium of Starcraft2, the Starships of War. This is a supplement book, of course. It is vague, thin, and not overly heavily detailed. You can see those are about as sophisticated as the artwork gets for the ships. There's a few bits and pieces in here, but nothing grandeur. And these always remind me of the earlier crew drawings. And to some degree, some of the stuff I'm still doing today, if I want to create layouts for starships in some of the games I've played, I'll do that. This particular guide covers the Ozric, the GPR, the Mercantile League, and the UFP, or Terran sector. So it is the books on, or the ships of the human civilizations or political bodies that populate their spacefaring world, and the system that is set up so it reads this way, and the other, from top to bottom, so it's different. You can see, for the most part, all we've got is stats, the mechanics. We've got a silhouette. In some cases, we'll have an internal cutaway of it. To give you an example, this is what I meant, that blueprint-wise, it's fairly straightforward, and there's very little diversity in that kind of stuff. I mean, if you look, it's this way all the way through, and the other books are the same way. The bulk of the book is that. This is one of the reasons I didn't buy when I first encountered these. Like I said, these were not on a shelf. They were on a lower shelf, more or less in a box of stuff that Ivor, the man who owned the game store when I was in my teenage years, had regulated to the, quote, lower shelf because they were no longer producing them. I started buying these things in the mid-'80s, so it would have been 83 or 84 when I started buying them, and I got them because they were on a discount. As an example, I don't know if you can see what I paid there. It's in reverse, but $6. $6 for that. What is that? $6? I don't know if these other ones. Yeah, the other ones don't have a tag on them, but most of them were under 15 bucks. I bought the box set, and then I started buying these things. And you had a few of the box sets still on this primary shelf, but most of these, they just didn't. They were surpassed by much more grandiose and flashier game systems that were coming out, and they were cranking. They were coming out. We see a lot of game systems coming out today, but most of the games that we got coming out now, good chunk of them are from independent people who are self-publishing or using the internet media to get their stuff out, which is a great thing. I don't know personally Eric Bloat Games, but I suspect that's kind of what category he's in. I might be wrong. If I am, I apologize, but I don't think he's an example where these guys came from. Right? They were this way. These were the Eric Bloats of the day. And then you have the TSRs and the Weston Games and the FASs. And those people had bigger pockets, deeper resources. They actually had people who were all about making money and not about the games themselves. And they were able to crank out gobs of stuff. And they were able, more importantly, to bring the game material up to that next level. So we got color. Got color covers and color pictures. We got better graphics. We got better material. I mean, if you look at the material from my old space opera stuff, which is almost store-bought print, it's almost newspaper quality print. It's so cheap. And then the stuff that these are made out of, some of these early games and stuff, which is a Neo cardstock. It's still good paper. It's still good print, but it's not the glossy. It doesn't have that glossy. Expensive feel that a lot of the newer stuff, or the stuff that came later. It most certainly doesn't have the high-end graphics and colors and pictures and professional, that they paid professional artists to commission to create for them, or purchased from artists who were creating these things for that purpose. And they just didn't have the resources These guys did not have those resources that the bigger boys did, and they surely didn't have access to gobs and gobs of quote free stuff that you can get off the internet today and speckle through your stuff. So, I'm just saying. Getting onto this particular one, and it gives you the introduction, the classes of ships, the main components, their definitions of what they mean. For example, boat bay. This term is used in two ways in ship statistics. In the case of small craft, refers to the area needed to store, launch, and maintain the starfighter or other small craft. In the case of larger vessels, it refers to the space devoted to small craft stowage, maintenance, fuel storage, repair shops, and magnetic linear accelerators and recovery systems required to launch and recover such craft. They also, in my game system, boat bays are referred to lifeboats. That's what those are. So it's a matter of perspective. And here they give us crude versions of the interstellar flags of the particular human-controlled stellar powers, battle cruisers and battle stars, blah blah, fleet destroyers. Here's a key for layout of a ship and some base statistics. Then we got into goes straight into base by category. So some fighters, and then some lighter ships and some heavier ships. Not a lot of detail in the lots of stat material, but not a lot of detail. Now, I will not argue that some of these are pretty complicated from a standpoint of the math, and the mechanics can be boring to some people. And if you want, I wonder if I could find it, because I'll tell you, you want a stat-heavy, mathematically challenging game system. I've heard a few people say well, I didn't like Space Hour because it was so complicated, so complex. Starfleet battles. Now, I'll grant you that's not an RPG, that's a tabletop war game. I'm telling you, I've had it. I've got most of the supplements for it. I've played it. It is, the tabletop paper version is a beast. Straight up, it is a beast. You have gobs of information and tracking them all for every vessel in your quote fleet. So if you're doing a tabletop war game with fleet maneuvers of dozens of ships, you have probably, in our case, we would have a second table set up so we could lay out our our character sheets for the starships and deal with it. So, Starships number 2.